This is Mitch, and you're listening to episode 3 of DuckTalks. Thanks for listening to our show. It's the week of Monday, October 23rd, 2017. And on this episode of DuckTalks, we discuss more episode shuffles. Todd McFarlane draws DuckTales? Will Daisy Duck be in the reboot? The DuckTales comics by IDW, and a review of the latest episode, the Infernal Internship of Mark Beaks. This week, Pirate's away on vacation, so joining me tonight to discuss DuckTales on DuckTalks is our good friend Josh. Josh, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Excited to get together and glad to have you on the show tonight so that we can talk about some DuckTales.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for inviting me to get a guest star in this episode.
Yeah, well, you know, when we realized that Pirate was going to be on vacation this week and that he probably wouldn't have time or the ability to call in and do a recording, you were the first person that we both thought of, because we talk with you probably, but we talk with each other a lot about DuckTales, but you're probably the person that gets involved in our conversations the most outside of the two of us. So we figured it'd be a great opportunity. You've been a friend of ours for a while now. You and Pirate have known each other a lot longer than you and I have, but we got to know each other by playing Overwatch mostly at the right after the end of Disney Infinity, which we've not talked about much on this show. I figure it seems to come up every episode, but we all played a game that our listeners probably have heard of called Disney Infinity. Now, you and Pirate were very involved in that community.
Yeah, I was known, or me and Pirate were known as the Toy Box Master Artist for the life cycle of the game. Every week they would have what they call a toy box contest, where they give us a theme and we would design a toy box based upon that theme, and we compete against everybody else who submitted a toy box. And that's kind of how we got to know each other, because we started, me and Pirate would submit toy boxes and win quite a few of those challenges, and we went to the Toy Box Summit together, and we all kind of started to talk because of Disney Infinity. And after the cancellation of the game, we started playing Overwatch, and that's how I kind of got to know Mitch more. And I was a part of the actually it was called Inside Watch podcast with Res TV for a while, where we had discussed all the latest news for Overwatch. And so I've kind of been here, part of the family, and I got to know a lot of the Inside Disney Infinity podcast people by meeting them at the Toy Box Summit and at some of the other events, and so kind of behind the scenes, but still part of the community.
Yeah, and it was a great community. That's really what pulled me in, was the community around Disney Infinity. And I enjoyed playing the game. I was never much of a builder, as you know, because you're one of the people I bugged with those "how do you do this" questions. And you even wrote me out. You even wrote a graph for me one time, or a instructions, a very, 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 very detailed instructions on how I could do something very simple, because my girls and I enjoyed playing. So, but yeah, there was a great community, and you're a great ambassador for that community and for a
Thanks.
Disney community. And I think it's funny we all end up playing this first-person shooter online, but we like to talk about Disney and Disney movies and Disney television.
Yeah.
Glad to have you on the show. Very excited to be here again this week. Thank you to all the listeners who have joined us again. Some news about our podcast is that we are finally listed on iTunes. So if you have not seen our tweet or our messages that subscription is available through iTunes, you can go to res.tv, follow the link there to Apple, or maybe easier, just to use your iTunes button on your device, and or icon. It's not a button, is it? But use that icon to go to your podcatcher and subscribe and download the episodes that way. Now, if you use any other format, there should be a link on res.tv on our page that will allow you to get to where you need to be to subscribe. Now, if you're on a service that you cannot subscribe to, let us know. Reach out to us. We'll see what we can do about getting that set up. I know there's a number of different ways you can get to podcasts, but it seems that iTunes is the number one way for most of the people that I've spoken with.
So is it going to continue being on Res TV, or is it only going to be from your guys' feed on iTunes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it will continue to be on res.tv. They have, there's a few options there. So res.tv puts out a feed that includes all of their shows. So
Okay.
you can subscribe on iTunes or through whatever podcatcher you use. You can subscribe to their feed, and you'll get every show that they make. And included in that will be Duck Talks. But you can
Sweet.
also go to the shows directly and just subscribe to the individual shows. It's a great setup. It's a great community. Okay. Again, I'll say it again this week. Very thankful for all the help that I've received from res.tv. Lloyd has been amazing, and I love that dude. And you were talking about Inside Infinity and some of the other programming at res.tv. I've been a fan for a while, and they've always put out great content. I did not realize how hard they worked until I tried to put together my own show.
Yeah.
Res has 13 years of podcasting experience and about video games, and they decided to come together and discuss everything geek. There's shows about movies, shows about Disney, Lego. A lot of news about Lego this week. News about comics, TV. They even talk about wrestling and sports too. So lots of content there. Check it out and become part of a great community. We're so thankful to be part of that family. So Josh, let's introduce our listeners to you. They've heard Pirate and I ramble a little bit about this show. We talked a little bit about our fandom and kind of our experience with the show, and comics. Not so much for us, but we know a lot of fans have that tether to the Disney Ducks as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your DuckTales fandom?
Yeah, sure. Well, growing up, I pretty much loved all things Disney. We didn't have cable TV to watch like the Disney Channel or anything like that. So we probably I probably much watched all the Disney movies growing up. And then when I got a little older, the Disney afternoons kind of started to rerun on regular TV stations. And so after school, I would always go home and I would watch a lot of the different shows they had available. My favorites were, of course, DuckTales, Darkwing Duck. I loved Goof Troop, Rescue Rangers, Gummy Bears. I don't know, not a lot of people have seen that show, but I love that show. And then kind of later on, some of the like Gargoyles and the Aladdin TV show, where a lot of the shows that they had in the evenings were just ones that I just loved watching every day. And when I heard DuckTales was coming back, I was a little scared and a little excited at the same time, because you never know if they're going to change things or mess things up, or even if it's going to even happen whatsoever. I know there were a few kind of rumors that Darkwing Duck was going to come back before I even heard about DuckTales was coming. And a lot of those kind of anxiety moments that I had coming up to the show went away when I started watching the first few episodes, just because how well done it is. Like it's funny, it's engaging, and I love just the art style that they've provided for this show, and then the, I guess, diversity of the characters have really kind of brought the show more to life for me, and so I'm just super excited about the show. And online I make a lot of GIFs and put them on Twitter just because I love all the different reactions of the different characters, and I don't know, it's just one of my new favorite shows. I watch it every week, and I just can't wait for more.
Yeah, I think I use your gifts more often than you do. Our DuckTalks account uses them a lot as well. That's
Yeah.
usually how you can tell if it's Pirate or me. Pirate's usually posting about deals and collectible stuff that he finds, and
Yeah.
I'm usually posting gifts that I find
Yeah.
from Josh.
But yeah, the changing characters, that was one of the big things that I was a little worried about. But I just, with everybody having just almost a new personality in the show,
Mhm.
is just really, like I said earlier, brought it to life for me. I just love all the little minor changes that just kind of made the show really awesome.
Yeah, I was talking with a friend of mine who has a little girl, and they're just starting to get into watching Disney TV and trying to find things. That's one of the things that has kept our family into Disney has been, our little girls trying to find something. A lot of times they're awake. I don't want to run them out of the room because I want to watch something. We're in the same room most of the time as a family when everybody's awake, and so watching, you know, I want something that I can enjoy watching and okay with them being in the room.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and so talking with them about some of that, we got to talking about Phineas and Ferb, and just what a great show that is, and how much, like, as adults, two grown men, we were out in a we were out. A funny story. We were out in a cornfield. It was a corn maze. Um, that was where my daughter wanted to go for her fifth birthday. And so, but we were talking about Phineas and Ferb and just what a great show that is. And I told him, I was like, Disney XD has this new DuckTales out. And he's like, DuckTales? Man, I love DuckTales. I used to watch DuckTales, and started talking about all the Disney afternoon. It's the perfect show for them to come out with. I mean,
Yeah, it is. I like exactly what you're saying. When I was a kid, I used to watch it with my dad. Like, we would always watch shows together.
yeah,
We would get action figures together. Even like if you go to his desk now, he still's got like a Darkwing Duck action figure. It's perfect for
that's
like kind of
awesome.
engaging with your parents or with your kids. It's perfect for that. And I mean, even anybody in our generation, you just say DuckTales and they'll automatically reply, "Woo!"
Woo.
Everybody knows it and
Yeah,
everybody loves it.
yeah, it's great. Yeah, I'm loving the show. Obviously, so much that I'm putting hours into a podcast. Um, but let me ask you. So we asked ourselves, who's your favorite triplet at this point?
Well, you know what? It kind of started off for me liking Dewey, then Louie, and then now that I've kind of got to know the characters a little more, I think I've finally made my decision on Huey. So I think Huey's my favorite so far. Because the original, they were all like the same kind of, I guess, character, just all
Completely
this.
interchangeable.
Yeah, exactly. But now, just kind of their different personalities. Like, Huey's kind of a little more uptight and kind of a little bit of a know-it-all. But like, I like that because I get a lot of, I can kind of relate to that character more
Hmm.
for me. And then I guess then there's Dewey's a little bit more of an adventurer, and then Louie's kind of more laid back and just kind of likes to let things happen. And they're totally different, I guess, personalities. But for me, I'm starting to kind of connect with Huey.
I can see that. The
Yeah.
did did you catch the? I think it was an Oh My Disney. They do various quizzes about which character are you. Did you catch
Uh-huh.
that?
No, is it still going on?
I don't know. It's probably still out there. It was about the time of the premiere because we every one of us in my house we took it, and I was Huey, which made sense because I'm the oldest of my of my siblings,
Hmm.
and so I definitely fit into the Huey mold. My oldest daughter was Donald, and it was great. It was hilarious. And my youngest was Webby, and it
Hmm.
made total sense. My youngest is definitely a Webby. But on the triplets, yeah. So Huey's great, and I agree. I'm so glad we've gotten. I'm glad we've finally gotten to know him a little bit more. I can't wait for that episode. There's a Huey centric episode coming up. at some point. So looking forward to getting some more.
Yeah, I'm kind of like curious because like in this last episode, I know we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but it focused more on Huey and Dewey. But I was like, okay, I know there's two of them in there, but is it focusing on him or not? Because when they did the Great Dime Chase,
Yeah.
we had two of the triplets, but it was focusing more on Louis. So it's kind of interesting. I wasn't sure all the way if it was focusing on him, but I figured there'd be one coming.
Yeah, this one was kind of equal between the two. But yeah, Huey has one set, and we have more information on it now. Apparently, his episode was pushed back because it will have snow in it, and Disney
Oh,
XD wanted to hold off till winter because
that,
there's snow.
okay, that
So
makes sense.
yeah, so it was supposed to be early in the lineup, but it's been pushed back. So we'll get it eventually. Frank Angonez has said on Twitter, the episode shuffles, it's not that big of a deal. Apparently, it's not going to mess anything up. It's a little odd, he thinks, in its presentation, but really the only changes are due to Halloween and snow.
Yeah.
They felt like Terror of the Terra Firmians was something they could play all October, and it felt like it was Halloween related. And they felt like the Huey episode has snow, so it needs to wait until winter. But everything else is pretty close up until this week.
Okay.
Or, I'm
Okay.
sorry, up until last week, where we had another schedule shift, another change. We were supposed to get Infernal Internship of Mark Beaks. That's the episode we thought we were getting. Up until all of a sudden it started showing on various providers that the episode that would air in the United States was The House of Lucky Gander. And so we got The House of Lucky Gander, but apparently Canada still got the episode about Mark Beaks. So there was a little bit of a switch up there. No comments on Twitter from anybody at the show explaining why. I think it's been funny because we had promos for both episodes leading
Yeah.
into last week, and then when the change happened, a few of us were commenting on it. And then this week, as more promos have played about the Mark Beaks episode, people in Canada have started to comment going, wait a minute, we've already seen this episode. And there's been these conversations of, the U.S. hasn't. We got Lucky Gander. What? We get Lucky Gander this week.
Yeah, it's so weird.
No explanation for it, but it happened. It's real.
So is there like a Disney XD Canada then that just has different programming?
I'm not sure how that works. And from what I have, I'm also a big fan of Star Wars Rebels. And they've had the same they've had all kinds of issues, not with episodes being out of order, at least not that I know of, but with just their schedule changing constantly. This year, when Rebels started up, they did a 12:30 a.m., 7:30 a.m., 12:30 noon, afternoon, 5:30 p.m., and 9 o'clock or 7:30. I
Okay.
don't know. That's how the show premiered on a Monday.
Oh, it was a Monday.
It was a Monday, and everybody complained about it just because, spoilers, right?
Yeah.
How can you go throughout the day without getting spoilers? And so, leading into this week, they announced, okay, we've dropped that. We're not going to do all those airings. It will air at 9 o'clock, which is still kind of odd because it's not odd because a lot of the people that watch the show are adults. But it seems strange to me as a father of two kids who like to watch it, whose bedtime is at 8:30.
Yeah. Is it still that Monday or did they change the date on that as well?
It's Monday. It aired.
Okay.
It is on right now.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's another 1 hour episode. It's two episodes together. So,
Oh, geez.
but yeah. So this is something that it looks like Disney XD does. It seems like their shows maybe have a loose schedule, and I can't help but feel that some of the things that have been going on with DuckTales and Star Wars Rebels and another show that we watched, the Forces of Destiny shorts.
Oh.
they showed those online, and then they've had programming where they've had it on the channel as well. I think Disney's really trying to figure out this whole streaming thing.
Yeah,
Because they have their own product getting ready to come out within the next couple of years, and I think they're trying to figure out what's going to work best for that. I think they're testing things.
that makes sense because I mean, technology is changing, people's watching habits are changing now with the era of Netflix, where they put an entire season on at once and people binge watch. Like it's hard to kind of judge. Like, okay, I know, for instance, with Hulu, you can see, oh, upcoming shows are coming. They're like the ones that are aired will be available the next day at a certain time, and so it's I feel like a lot of different companies are still kind of gauging on what the best way to air an episode like that would be. And so obviously with Disney, they want to have either their way or kind of discover the best way to present the content for the people who pay for that service and whatnot.
I definitely think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been a little bit of shuffling again, but it doesn't look like it's a big deal. I think we got a little worried with how it was going to impact story. I know a lot of people were on social media asking, what's this going to mess up? It does not appear like it messes anything up. The overarching story is still going to be there. Nothing's been spoiled for us.
Yeah.
So on to the next bit of news for this week. I thought this was very interesting. So I came across this, I think the first time I saw it, one of the creators of the show posted it, and then I saw, or retweeted it, and then I saw that Frank and Gomez retweeted it as well with his reaction. So comic book creator and artist Todd McFarlane tweeted actually I think, I, when I looked it up, it was actually on Facebook. So I think he did it live. I think it was a Facebook Live where he drew a mashup between DuckTales and Spawn. And what was cool about this was he said, you're probably wondering why. Why would I do DuckTales and Spawn? And he pulled up a screenshot from the episode Terror of the Terrafermians. And when they were coming out of the theater, one of the posters is very clearly Spawn inspired.
Oh. Wow.
And so in the video, he shows that before he draws a mashup between the two properties. And it was just really fun. And he says, somebody on the show must be a fan, so this is for them. And like I said, Frank got really excited about it, and a lot of people from the show have talked about it on social media. But I thought that was fun. I'll retweet it from the DuckTalks account. And
Did Todd McFarlane do anything with Spawn in the past? Because I'm looking at his Twitter account, and he's got pictures of Spawn as well. I don't know if he's just a fan or if he was...
He created Spawn.
Oh, he created Spawn.
He created Spawn. Yeah. Todd McFarlane was an artist at Marvel, and he was doing Spider-Man. Back when some of the artists were having trouble, they did not agree with some of the practices and decided to split off on their own. And Spawn was his first book that he did under Image Comics. So he's one of the original Image Comics creations. He was created by Todd McFarlane. And he definitely got some Spider-Man inspired looks to his costume. That's why.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a cool mashup. The video's cool. Like I said, it'll be on the Twitter account. We'll retweet it. And I just thought that was fun. Thought we'd... All right, so one more bit of news before we talk about our first topic. We posted over at, I guess that's a little bit of news to bring up. So DuckTalks is now DuckTalks.com, no longer the WordPress big long name. We registered it this past week, so you can now find us at DuckTalks.com for our blog. And one of the articles that we did this week was, will we see Daisy in the reboot? In DuckTales, we did not have a lot, Donald was not in the show. He was in a handful of episodes. Overall, it was Scrooge and the boys and Webby and Launchpad and Mrs. Beakley. But with the addition of Donald to the reboot, it got me to thinking, what's the chances that we see Daisy? We never saw her in DuckTales, but she's a character that was created to go alongside, to complement Donald. And she was in a lot of shorts with Donald, a lot of the cartoons, and also in feature films with the Fantasia. What was the sequel to Fantasia? Fantasia 2000. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she was also in that, and got me to thinking, will she show up? There's the Quack Pack, which was a short run of a successor to DuckTales of sorts, although it was a different type of story universe. It's not a continuation. It's just more along the lines of the legacy of it. I know a lot of Disney Duck fans are kind of pulled on this one. Did you ever watch Quack Pack?
I've watched some of it, and I liked how it had more of a modern take to it, and all the boys were a little older, and I do remember Daisy being a little bit different looking, mm-hmm. and then kind of being more of a presence in the show.
Yeah, I have 3 episodes of the show on DVD for our family to watch. We haven't opened it yet, and well, we just haven't had the time. I got it last week, and it's still on the shelf, but I'm looking forward to checking it out. One thing that I noticed when researching Daisy and looking at things is that her comic book history is not at all what I thought. I was very surprised by it. So based on Don Rosa, now Don Rosa is writer, artist of Disney Ducks. So some of your more modern Donald Duck and Scrooge McDuck comics, Don Rosa's involved. And he has an unofficial timeline that he's created. And in his unofficial timeline, he explains why the nephews call Daisy Aunt Daisy. Because, she's not married to Donald in those comics. But they still refer to her as Aunt. So he has explained it unofficially. This is not something that Disney has supported to this date that we know of. Daisy is the sister of Donald's brother-in-law. Now, for fans of the reboot, I think this could lead to a bigger story, because that would mean that Daisy's brother married Donald's sister Della, who is the current mystery of the show. Right? We're waiting to learn more about Della Duck. So they could definitely introduce her. And so we posted on Twitter a link to the article, and one of our friends on Twitter commented that Frank and Gomez, co-producer of the show, has been asked this question a lot on Tumblr. And his response is, "See my pinned tweet." And I felt like an idiot when it hit me what that meant.
And frequent asked questions.
Yeah. So his pinned tweet is, "Yes, we love that thing or character that you're asking us about, and yes, we want and will have it in the show." So that was his official response, was yes, Daisy will be in the show at some point.
If I don't know, I kind of feel if that in Quack Pack that they, I guess, called her Aunt Daisy, then they're kind of quietly confirming that she is somehow related to them, even if it's not like the sister of their father. But it seems like that there is some kind of connection to that. But one thing that I do love about the show, and like you were just saying with the co-producer of the show, says that he said we love it too. Absolutely will. Like, I love that the creators and the cast all love the old show, and it kind of bleeds through into the show. You can see the passion and the excitement of reintroducing these characters and kind of infusing them into the new story. And I just love how that kind of just shows in the show, and then I think it gets the fan base more excited, because you're excited to see what's coming up, and then you're excited to re-see the things you experienced in the previous show.
Yeah, there's no doubt that yes, I agree with you. The people involved in this show, they absolutely love what they're creating, what they're working with, and they've talked a lot about the legacy of it being handed to them. That these are not characters they've created, but that they're
Mm-hmm.
characters that they've been entrusted with. And you're right. Every single person who's working on this show is just head over heels in love with these characters. And every time I'll see on social media that they'll point out so and so was the director of this episode, or so and so wrote this episode, or so and so did the boards, the storyboards on this episode. I immediately follow that person and start watching them. And it's so cool because they're so excited about their episode or their story or their character showing up, and they're just ecstatic to be part of DuckTales.
Yeah.
And it has made for a better show.
And hopefully we'll see Daisy soon in it.
Now I didn't save it. I'm really good about screenshots. This week has been crazy. One of the Tumblr questions was responded to with, but not until season 2. So if we see her this season, I'll be surprised. I think it will be next season, which, we'll need a new mystery. They'll need to find their dad, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what everybody's expecting at this point, because that's been the biggest mystery forever. Because we've always, they've Disney has always been clear that Donald's sister was the mother for the boys, and I think her name has changed in different iterations and versions, but it's always been his sister. But it's always been in question who's the father.
Yeah. Wonder why they never kind of not that they didn't release the information, but I just always wondered why they didn't, or they kept it a mystery. It seemed like that's something that they would eventually have told before now. But I'm glad that they are telling these stories to us.
The ending of the premiere just brought chills and just shocked me, because we saw that it ends with everybody's safe and back home, and the families finally together, and they're looking around in the garage, which was formerly the Museum of Strange Things or whatever that was Webby was calling it. But and Dewey's looking at that painting again, which had him questioning everything earlier, and he's looking at it, and he's looking at his Uncle Donald, who he now realizes is an adventurer, and he pushes up that corner, and he says, "Mom?" I mean, it was just perfect. They could not have caught me with anything better.
Yeah.
That's not true. Had Darkwing Duck shown up in the premiere, I probably would have fell on the floor.
Yeah, I can't wait for him to show up at some point.
And I'm okay with it being small and at some point.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying DuckTales. I don't need Darkwing yet, but I would take him if they wanted to give him to me.
Yeah, I know. I'm crossing my fingers that enough people say something about him showing up that we may down the line get something, but we'll see.
Well, there was a interview with Tad Stones where he was talking about a little bit of Darkwing and the interest in Darkwing, and he said that for sure Disney has noticed that there is a huge fan reaction and love and interest in the character of Darkwing Duck. Good. So, that's not to say that anything's in the works or anything's coming other than action figures that we've already seen. But we do know that Disney recognizes that people want Darkwing Duck. I mean, going back to Disney Infinity, half of, or at least a third of the fans of Disney Infinity wanted a Darkwing Duck figure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what was wrong with the other 2/3, but
well, the Toy Box Master Artist pushed a lot for him. We never got much leeway, but we pushed for him.
Right. That was my one. That and the boys. That was my second one. And Rescue Rangers. Mine were Disney Afternoon. I just wanted a Disney Afternoon set. Looking at something different. You and I have both talked about the comic. Mm-hmm. And on this show, Steven and I have talked about it a little bit, it's something we definitely want people to check out and we want to talk about. Steven's waiting on the trade, so he doesn't have all the issues yet. So I've kind of shied away from going into too much detail because I want him to be able to enjoy them. And he's not going to listen to this episode before the trade comes out. When you and I were discussing what we could talk about on this episode, I brought up, it'd be a good time to talk about the comics. And you said that you were in the process of, you had read the issue 0 and were getting ready to read the first one.
Yeah, I've read them both now, and I don't know how canon they are with the actual show, but so far they are, I guess, set before the first episode where Donald Duck is still kind of their guardian, and Scrooge hasn't really shown up, and or Webby or any of the characters other than Huey, Dewey, and Louie and Donald, and it's kind of Donald's misadventures of trying to find work. And that's kind of where we start off in the first episode, where he's looking for work at Guam Gold and all these other places. But I don't know how far in the comics are going to be doing this, because I think the next issue actually has Scrooge on the cover.
Right.
And so, but the 0 and the first issue number 1 were about him kind of looking for work, working at this job, and then something happened where he had to either quit or he left. And each comic book is kind of like split in 2. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 stories within the comic. They call it Story A and Story B, and they're just like little mini short little stories about kind of their adventures.
Yeah, I really like this format. I was very surprised by the comic. I wasn't sure what I was expecting. I wasn't sure if the comic would serve as a prequel to the show, or if it was something that would just jump right into some DuckTales adventures. But yeah, when I first started reading, and you get the premise, like you said. You are just at some point before what takes place in the premiere of the show, although Donald is wearing his black outfit, so we will call foul on a continuity error right there.
So what is this? Is there a story behind the black outfit, or?
So Donald, in his classic appearances in comics, wore a black outfit.
Okay.
So comic Donald, comic strip and comic book Donald wears the black outfit. And then, of course, in the show, we see his traditional blue and red outfit at the very beginning as Louie's pulling it off of him and throwing it in the dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's in totally different clothes up until he gets his job with Glomgold, who he thinks he's getting a different job, and he's like, "No, you're my new sailor," and he's back in a sailor's outfit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm not sure. They're just trying to tie it into the show. These comics, I don't think they're really trying to create a tight canon. That's something that DuckTales and Darkwing Duck and Goof Troop and all those shows, they never tried to keep a real tight canon. They really just tried to tell fun stories. Mm-hmm. I do expect DuckTales moving forward to hold to it a little bit more. Just because when you think of those really great Disney XD cartoons, they have kept some storylines. Gravity Falls, a lot of the people working on the DuckTales show worked on Gravity Falls, and so you just kind of feel that inspiration between the 2 properties, or between the two shows. But these comics, they're so much fun, and they remind me of the comic strips and the older comics, especially in that, each, like you said, each issue is divided into an A and a B story, and the artists that are working on them are different, but they kind of hold the same look of the show. Yeah, they're all written by the same person. Joe Caramagna is the writer of these books. But you'll see there's different artists involved, but they keep to the same look. But
the next comic number 2 is supposed to be coming out soon, right? Like in a
we should be a week or 2 out.
Pretty close.
Issue 1 was delayed, so or I'm not going to say it was delayed. Many of us thought it was coming out before the first. So after the premiere, before the first episode, which was episode 2,
Mm-hmm.
we thought we would get this issue, but it actually came out the week after the episode 2 of DuckTales.
Okay.
So it was a week delay, which meant that it was late in the month. It was the 23rd, I think. So it's either this week or next week. We'll start looking into that and try to find out.
Mm-hmm.
But it is put out by IDW, and it's a great quality book. Again, I like how it's the fun little stories. The first 4 stories, we got 2 issues, issue 0 and issue 1. The first 4 stories are prequels, but when you look, and they've tried to keep this hidden in all the promotional images before issue 1 was released. The cover to issue 2 has a big black blot with a question mark on it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you turn to the last page of the actual story in issue 1, we get the true cover to DuckTales issue 2, and it has Scrooge in the forefront. He's standing there, pointing like they're going into some cavern or some tomb or something. Donald in the background carrying a backpack full of shovels and stuff, and Della Duck standing there beside Scrooge holding some book with some ancient symbol on it.
Mm.
So next issue, which is either coming out this week or next week, we're about to get into some of their story somehow.
Yeah. Makes me think that they're going to try to they got to bring in Della in the show at some point to kind of go along with, I don't know if it'll go along with it, but because they haven't found her at all, if she's still around, or we don't even know what happened to her. I don't know if they would want to spoil that for the show,
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that, because we know that, we've just had little crumbs of Della's story. All we know is that she's gone. We know that Donald's overprotective of the boys because she's gone, and that's why he's been watching them, and he's a helicopter father. And we know that Scrooge and Donald, their relationship fell apart over the sword, the spear of Selene. And we know that there was some contention there. They were angry with one another about it. Donald even said, it's like the spear of Selene all over again. And Donald says, I was not at fault for the spear of Selene. And, we had the comments from Scrooge where he said that, family's nothing but trouble to Mrs. Beakley. And then at the end of the Louie episode, The Great Dime Chase, where we have Dewey and Webby in the library, and they find the Della room, and there is a note from Della to Scrooge saying that she's sorry that she took the spear of Selene. So we've got some information. We know she was an adventurer with them, or at least from the painting and what we've had so far, that seems to be the case. But I don't think they're going to tell us that story. I'd be really surprised if they did. But I think they are going to tell us some stories about Donald and Scrooge and Della. But I'm interested in how they're going to do it, because the boys know nothing about Donald's adventuring.
Yeah. Obviously we can only guess at this point, but it just kind of seems like they discovered something about the spear, and then the sister decided to leave with it for some reason, and then Donald is just is taking care of the boys, and they just don't know what happened to her. Well, they may know, but they're not telling us.
Right. I'm looking online, and I'm looking at something that says October 11th was when issue 2 was supposed to come out. I've been at my comic book store since then, and I know it's not come out. So,
Interesting.
But issue 3, because there's some covers on this website. Issue 3's covers are on there, and it also shows Donald, Scrooge, and the black blot with a question mark, who I'm going to guess is Della. And then it looks like issue 4 has the boys on the cover, and some excitement for issue 4 and 5. We see Scrooge and Launchpad on those covers. So
Mm,
I think we've maybe moved out of the prequel. Maybe we're going to get a prequel story for the three adults, the family, the uncle and
yeah.
the and Donald and Della, and then maybe we'll move into some DuckTales adventuring. I'm excited, I tell you another thing that's exciting. We were talking about the creators of the show. I caught an interview earlier this week. I found it on it was a Twitch channel, but it was on YouTube, and I put it right here. Let me find it. It was an interview with Game Not Off at New York City Comic Con. This was an interview with Joe Caramagna, and he confirms that the early issues are a prequel with
Mm,
the adventures of Donald and the nephews. And it's about Donald not being able to hold down a job. So it's going to lead into the premiere of the show. And he says, the premise is the comic will be focused on family and what it means to be family. So
okay.
I definitely think he was very passionate about the comic. He was another Disney afternoon kid, so he's was very excited. Now he does work for Marvel Comics. He's a letterer. I don't know that I won't take that back. I know what he has been. He's worked at Marvel as a letterer and as a writer. He took one of the Avengers television shows and did the adaptation to comics. I know he did
Mm.
that. But yeah, so he's doing this book with IDW because Marvel's got some strange. Um, I've never heard it explained, but they've got books by Joe Books and by IDW, and Star Wars has got comics with IDW. Marvel's branching out with their properties.
Yeah, I don't know if it kind of makes me wonder if they're doing the whole like where they, I guess they're franchising or are paying for the rights for those franchises so other, I guess like IDW can make comics because they're Disney's doing that with their video game properties where like with Star Wars they're letting people purchase the rights to do those games, and they're just not producing it. So I'm kind of wondering if they're doing in that kind of situation with the comics, or if they actually kind of secretly own IDW. I have no idea, but there's got to be some kind of relation, or just IDW is just wanting to pay for the rights for it.
Yeah, they're doing IDW is doing their all ages books. So like Marvel does Star Wars comics, but they have a Star Wars Adventures that's aimed for all ages that's done through IDW or published through IDW. So yeah, it's um, a relationship that seems kind of strange, and my local comic book guy thought it was strange when the first time I showed up at his shop, and I was like, yeah, I'm looking for Disney's Darkwing Duck, and it's put out by Joe Books, and he was
Mhm.
like, who? Like he knew Darkwing Duck. He actually has all the action figures in his store
Oh,
on
wow.
display, but Joe Books was someone he wasn't familiar with, and man, I loved that book,
Yeah, I
the
need to
Darkwing Duck.
catch up on those. I haven't read those yet, but I'm gonna catch up on those.
Oh, they're so well done, and any opportunity we get to plug Darkwing Duck comics that were produced by Joe Books, we're going to. Aaron Sparrow and James Silvani, they're awesome. They're huge fans of the character. They have a series that ran for 8 issues and is kind of on hold right now, with no word as to when issue 9 will come out, but we know that the guys have put some blood and sweat into the issue, or at least the story. But yeah, if it's something you're interested, if any of the listeners are interested in finding, there's a huge collection of Darkwing Duck comics by these two. That's called the Definitive Edition. I'm sorry, the Definitive Dangerous Edition, and you can find that still on Amazon and places. It's also on Comixology.com. So if you can't find, a hard copy, you can get a hold of it digitally and read through it. It's awesome, and those 8 issues are some of the some. I really enjoyed them. I just loved them. It wasn't. It was not just nostalgia. Aaron Sparrow is hilarious, and if he doesn't end up writing more Darkwing Duck. I hope he ends up writing some DuckTales in some form, because a lot of the laughs, a lot of the gags in the show remind me of his work. So
And so
yeah,
last I looked for that Darkwing Duck. You said it's the Definitive Dangerous Edition is the has all of them together.
yeah, it's the Definitively Dangerous edition. Now, that's not the most recent. That was the series that was produced before. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they did like a year run or longer. Man, it's a thick book. It's like 3 trades thick, um, of stories. I can't remember how many are in there. There's an original story by Tad Stones, who was the creator or is the creator of Darkwing Duck. He did one that's in there with an original character that he created for the book. So it's great. And, hashtag Save Darkwing. We'll preach it all the time. That's a book I don't want to see end, and I hope those guys get the word any day now to start work on that issue 9.
Yeah, I hope so too.
So this is the part of the show where we'll talk about the current episode, the episode that just aired this weekend. For our listeners who don't know, we are going to discuss the episode. It aired on Saturday. This was recorded on a Monday. It might be out on Tuesday, so you've had plenty of time to watch this episode. It's on demand all over the place. Your provider has it available for you. Don't miss out. Go check it out, and then come back if you've missed it. But I'm sure everyone who's listening to this has watched this episode. So there's your spoiler alert. I think it was another great episode. I still think The House of Lucky Gander is going to hold the title of my favorite episode for a little while.
All
But
right.
I really enjoyed this episode. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, it was different. I felt like it had a little bit of a different pace than some of the other episodes, and it kind of dealt with different types of situations. Whereas like the other ones were adventures, this one kind of had a little bit of a learning. I don't know how you say it, but like so, it had something to learn about during the episode.
Yeah,
in it.
fake
So,
it until you make it.
yeah. So I don't know if that's a good thing to learn about, or but definitely brought up some interesting situations for Huey and Louie.
Yeah, and the side story, I love the side stories. The side story with Glomgold and Scrooge was hilarious, and I know that Pirate has probably not seen this episode yet, and I know that Glomgold is very dear to his heart, maybe his favorite character in this show right now, and he had some great moments in this episode as well. So I can't wait to talk with him about Glomgold, but. That rivalry between Scrooge and Flintheart was great, and I love how they started the episode where you just get this, we're square in the face of Glomgold and of Scrooge, and there's something going on, like there's some sort of, they're facing off, you just know there's a treasure involved, you just know, this rivalry's come to a head, and then you find out that they're sitting across from one another in a room having a staring contest.
Yeah, they're just staring.
And when the boys ask them, if what's going on, Scrooge says, "This is a vision-based battle of the wills."
Yeah, these guys are so into rivalry that they compete at everything, and their next. Well, I guess they do this often, but their next challenge is to do a staring contest.
Well, it's hilarious because they're in the same room, and as the episode begins, we find out that it's the Billionaires Club. So it's a place in Duckburg that they both hang out at, and they hang out there so much that they've divided this room into 2, and they've decorated it themselves and put a line down the middle.
Yeah, I guess that means like they're the only billionaires that go there because they've taken up the whole space.
Yeah. But there's something very, very ironic about the thought that these arch enemies hang out together, because by the end of the episode, Scrooge even says, "I'll see you later, Flinty."
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny how like they stare so much that their eyes are turning red, and then and they try not to look away, and they like almost look away, and they're like, "No, how dare you include me in your arguing with your family?" And so it's just
Right.
funny.
It was great. And this scene also very quickly introduces us to Mark Beaks. What did you think about
Yeah,
the Mark Beaks character?
it was interesting. Like he's got this kind of character where, or his personality where he's kind of wants to be in everybody's business. He wants all the attention, and everyone else is like, about him. Like, what are you doing here? Why are you even here? But he's like, oh, look at me. I'm gonna be the new billionaire. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me have this social media account. Let me have all these followers. It's kind of a interesting dynamic to a new character, and I guess one of the things that I knew going in is I think he's in the intro portion of the show, right?
Yeah,
Where they sing the
chasing.
song. So to me it makes me think, okay, he's going to be a recurring character,
Uh,
and this is kind of introducing him as, I don't know if he's going to be a villain or what in this universe, but he's going to me he's going to be some kind of recurring character. They want him to kind of stand out and then be this new personality in this mixture of characters. And so um, I see that going in, and I see that character. It's just so funny where he's like totally opposite of these other rich guys who are more worried about just staring each other down. He's more worried about like the stuff, I guess, in our current, I guess, time where where there's the social media, the following, the hashtag this, hashtag that, you
right.
know?
Yeah. There were so many gags with that. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, he Frank and Gomez has said this is their first original villain. Um, which I've episode mixing up. I'm not sure what that means for Toad Lee Huao or whatever his name was from last week, but I think that means Mark Beaks is going to be reoccurring.
Okay.
He's going to be in the show from time to time, um, and he was great. I mean, he just total in contrast to these two old guys staring one another down. He's just chatting them up and trying to talk, about how great he is to them, and they're staring
Yeah.
one another down. And their first thought is, we got to get rid of this guy.
Yeah. Like Glomgold is just like, oh, I hate the only person I hate more than him is you, Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So, but
funny.
they introduce him. They introduce that he's the CEO of Waddle, um, which is in of itself. As we go through the episode, it's very clear that we're looking at a Apple like
Yeah.
company, and this guy is very tech savvy, and he's making millions, getting ready to become a billionaire. He's got an app on his phone. He's keeping up with it, and the boys look up to him. Huey's
Yeah. I was gonna,
mesmerized by him.
I was gonna say more Huey looks up to him, and Dewey is kind of learning about him.
Yeah, Dewey definitely likes what he hears because he even makes the comment, "Give me 3 years and I'll be better than Mark Beaks." So
Hmm.
there's that competitive nature of this character that's going to show up over and over again. He's like, "Huh? You think that guy's great? Give me some time. I'll be better."
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Huey he pulls magazine out of somewhere. I'm guessing his hat because that's where he seems to be placing, his notebook in this episode, and the woodchuck guidebook is up there too. That hat's amazing. But he's got this tech magazine, and he knows who he is, and they get invited to come back. We also get the introduction of the big project Ta-da.
Ta-da!
Yeah, a another funny gag because in the background in that room there's bagpipes playing because both Scrooge McDuck and Glomgold are Scottish, right? So like it's part of their competition in the premiere. Glomgold even says, "I'm more Scottish than you are. I wear a kilt." But
Yeah.
you've got bagpipes, and so Mark Beaks says, let me introduce you to the future, and he starts playing a remix, and there's bagpipes in the background.
Yeah.
It was great.
Playing all the, yeah, like the remix versions of things. And
So the next day, we're introduced to a new part of Duckburg. So as the boys are going to their interview for the internship, they walk down a street, and we see a bus pass by, and it has Mark Beaks on it. But as the bus goes by, we also see there's like a Google car.
yeah.
It's not Google, but that's the first thing we think of, and with the cameras pointing in all directions as it's getting pictures of everything. And then above them's a drone shipping a package. And
Yeah.
so we're suddenly, we realize, and this was one of the first things you pointed out to me when we were talking about what we would discuss in this episode. Duckburg has like an explosion of technology with this episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, in some of the past episodes, like the Terror of the Terraformians, we see Lena with her cell phone and like using it as like a flashlight and stuff like that. But this one, we really see like the tablets, all the high tech stuff that we have nowadays. But it's something that obviously wasn't in the original. But it's kind of cool to see the show kind of connect with the current users because they know what cell phones are. They grew up with cell phones and they grew up with this kind of stuff. And it's obviously it should be part of the show because it's part of our culture now. And I just like they kind of put it subtly in the episode where if you're looking for it, you're like, oh yeah, hey, look at that. But if you don't, you're just like you can miss it if you're not looking for it.
Hey, that's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even once they get to Waddle and Huey's working off his checklist, he's gone from using his notepad to using some sort of tablet, a Waddle tablet, whatever they're called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he makes his checklist with little checks on it, and yeah.
It's also in that scene that we realize Dewey's carrying his super serious business briefcase.
Yeah, you don't really see him taking that by the sculpture earlier on, not the sculpture, I guess the suit of iron.
Yeah, suit of armor.
But you see, I mean, he mentions it later on that he got that sitting next to the suit of iron, and it's just funny that Glomgold, because he's got his little symbol on there later on. We find out that it's his. And he just leaves it there, doesn't think about, oh yeah, I have just a random suitcase. I'm just gonna leave there that anybody can take.
Well, a funny part of that gag is that where the boys are next to that suit of armor, it's roped off, and there's a sign that says "Kid Check."
Oh,
so he had put it in the kid check area.
That's funny. I didn't notice that. That was pretty good.
So what did you think of Waddle? I mean, we don't know much about what the company does other than they're on the back of a smartphone and on the back of a tablet, and we see one ad go. Well, actually, I think there's more than one ad in the episode. So
yeah, there's I think like an ad on the bus. There's like a billboard ad, and lots of different stuff. But it's definitely some kind of high tech company, like what we think of either Apple or Google, and how they're. I don't know if anyone's seen, I guess what the offices are at these places, but it looks similar to that, where they kind of have these extracurricular things available for their staff. For like this specifically, they have people on high impact trampolines, low impact trampolines. When I think the other one was like no impact trampolines or something.
Yeah,
I forget what it is.
No, that's it. It was no impact.
And then there's slides, but this is the kind of like type of business that has these kind of things for the employees. Kind of, I don't know, as part of the company culture for these types of businesses. So it's just kind of funny to see their play on it, because the slide going down, because it's more efficient, but it's fun,
Right.
It's and then Mark Beats is on one of those electric, what do they call it, electric skateboards, or he's not really like walking around. He's just kind of gliding where he wants to go through the whole time, and he's always got a spare cell phone in case something happens to it.
Yeah, the whole gag about the backup phone.
Yeah.
Every time, and there's a character who shows up who starts destroying his phones. But every time he destroys one of his phones, Mark Beaks just pulls another one out of his hoodie,
Yeah.
his hoodie jacket, his hoodie pocket, and starts typing away on it. And you just know Tim Cooks has got a ton of just a ton of backup phones all over, and that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure this was inside knowledge of how that life is lived.
Backup phone.
Yeah. So at Waddle, we're also introduced to another new character. Not sure if this one will show up from time to time, but I kind of think he will. Falcon Graves, and he introduces himself as a professional corporate saboteur, and Mark Beaks cuts him off to take a selfie. So we don't know what would have come after the and.
Yeah.
But
maybe good for hire. Who knows?
Yeah.
It seems like he could take care of himself. He just pretty much walk through security. They try to stop him, and he would karate chop them and knock them out.
Yeah, he took care of business, and Beaks was very impressed by him.
Yeah, and every time, yeah, like you were saying, he tried to say something. Beaks would cut him off and take a selfie with him and try to post it online, saying, "Oh, my current status is hostage."
Yeah.
So he would just constantly let everybody know what was going on, that he was being held hostage by this big bad Falcon Graves guy, and he's there to take something from the business.
Yeah, the character's so pretentious.
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely was written in a way that you want. He just gets under your skin, but it's fun. So,
he really reminds me of it. It's a different show, but I was talking with my wife when we were watching it. But there's a show called Parks and Rec, and one of the characters in there, his name is John Ralphio, and he is just like this character. And the funny part is that the actor who plays Dewey in the show is actually that actor.
who plays that character?
That plays that character in the show, and he plays exactly that same character where he's like he's like obnoxious, but he's kind of got that charm to him, and it's funny because Dewey actually likes the character and how he acts and stuff, and so the actor Ben Schwartz who voices him kind of has that personality. I don't know, like in real life, but he's acted that personality in the past, and so he like, for us, it instantly was like, hey, he's just like that character in Parks and Rec.
That's
and
funny.
It's just funny how like Dewey loves him, and it just, to me, I got like a little bit of a connection. I don't know if that was planned or anything, but to me, there was that kind of connection, like kind of a throwback to him to me, and it was, I don't know, it was a good little added part to the show.
Yeah, I've seen some interviews with the voice actors, and they've talked about how the show's creators have allowed them to kind of make the characters their own a little bit.
Yeah.
Or not so much that. They said that they've started to incorporate the actors into the creation. So kind of backwards, I guess. So the characters have become a little bit more of not them as individuals, but the character they were acting out. If that makes any sense. So yeah, I could definitely see that, because Huey's voice actor is also on that show, right? Danny
I think he was on he was on Community.
Oh, okay.
And then Ben Schwartz was on Parks and Rec, but he was just like a recurring small character. He wasn't like an actor that was in it every time, but he was like that party kind of guy who did whatever he wants, and like he was just ridiculous, like Mark Beaks. And and I just saw some comparison between them.
That's great. So Huey and Dewey find themselves competing in this episode to get this internship, because once they get there, they find out there's only one spot, and Huey really wants it. He was the one that was admiring Mark Beaks, and Dewey wants it because he's now realized that he wants it, which is probably because Huey wants it.
Well, that, and I think he's sees how everything is, like everything he can lick and it's made out of candy, and
Right.
he can kind of slack off and be amazing. It's he doesn't have to try hard. He can just buy pizza and be awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So everything comes to a head with the 2:15 coffee. It becomes the final challenge,
Mhm.
and Huey wins, and he gets the internship. But as Mark Beaks and Falcon Graves is walking off, because during all this, Mark Beaks is he's still being held hostage. Uh, he sees Dewey's briefcase and asks him about it, and he's like, you know what? You're chill. You're my new VP of fancy business. And new intern, you report to him.
Yeah.
And Huey says, how do I win and lose at the same time? And then he
he,
loses it. He like goes all
he does.
Donald.
He does. He freaks out. He's like, I'm gonna be in charge of destroying everything. I don't remember exactly what he says, but he
Yeah.
just starts biting things and ripping the desks apart. But just before that, I thought was kind of interesting, and it kind of was really short, and but like when Dewey comes up and gives him the coffee 1 minute too early,
Right.
Mark Beak kind of freaks out a little bit, and he's like,
Yeah.
"I didn't become this by not having order. There's an order to things." And he was just like kind of getting going about something, and yeah, to me, it was kind of an undertone of like I think what they might expand upon him as a character is he's got this like underlying thing that he kind of briefly shows like when he starts freaking out, and I think that's something that they may bring forth for him when they give him like kind of a reoccurring role, that he's got this kind of order to things and he wants things done his way, or it's kind of the highway. And it kind of cuts off when Huey comes and gives him the coffee, and he's like, "Oh, okay." He stops. He's like, "Oh, that got real there for a second." But I
Yeah.
think that personality is going to come in the future.
Yeah, I agree. Because before that moment, it was kind of hard to see him as a villain of the episode. I mean, he up to that point he was not the villain of the episode.
Yeah.
He was the plot point for the Scrooge and Glomgold, side story. But really, we would have said Falcon Graves was the villain. But we start to see a side of Beaks that we hadn't seen yet, and then that leads to us finding out that he's, not only is he a little annoying, he's not a very moral person.
Yeah, he's doing exactly what Dewey was doing. He's faking it and making it. Just like I guess I don't know if you were gonna say it, but they go on to open up this huge project called the Tada, and they open it up and it's nothing. It's an empty room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Huey's crushed by it, and Dewey's kind of like, I can't believe this was all fake.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the whole plot here is that Tada is a hoax, and he's selling this big project that doesn't exist, and getting investors so that he can become this billionaire. That puts him, his status. We
Hmm.
quickly realize that Mark Beeks is not as worried about the money as he is worried about his status and his social status.
Hmm.
And
And I
so,
think finally Dewey realizes that when they open up the door, because he's kind of like, yeah, there's a whole lot of nothing in here. And then after that, he kind of loses that respect
yep.
for him.
Yeah, earlier he was celebrating that Dewey was the first one to say, I think he was the first one to say, faked it, maked it. And then Mark Beeks later says,
Yeah,
fake it and then make it. I don't know. I don't think it was said before that.
I don't think so either, but it kind of alluded to it happening later on.
Yeah. So, and then then Falcon Graves gets upset, and he's like, "I'm calling my employer." And Mark Beeks' phone rings, and he's like, "You got Beeks?"
It's like, you hired me to steal your own project.
Yeah. Yeah, so they put it together that it's all a plot so that he can say that he did create something, And during all of this, we have Flintheart Glomgold trying to present a PowerPoint to Scrooge about how they get rid of Mark Beaks. And it's this big elaborate plot to kill him in a volcano.
Yeah.
And Scrooge is like, I'm not paying for that.
I think it's funny too, like we were talking about how it was showing all this modern technology with them going to Waddle, and then when it goes to them just kind of come up with this plan to take down Mark Beaks, that Glomgold pulls out the slide projector, something used back in the 70s.
Yeah.
So it's like old technology for the older people and new technology for the young, you know?
Yeah. And it's got that slide from Glomgold Industries.
Yeah, yeah. And then it shows Glomgold like with all these muscles, and their plan is to invite him to this cruise, and then be so sad that they didn't show up that he's gonna eat a bunch of food in the buffet, and then while he's eating, he's not gonna notice that he gets sails right into a flowing volcano where there's lava, and then it gets too hot, so he jumps in the pool, and then the great whites are gonna attack him, and he's gonna freak out at the great whites, and then jump in the lava and not realize he's
Scrooge is
inside
like,
of a volcano.
Scrooge is like, where are you going to get the sharks? And he's like, I got a shark guy.
I got a shark guy.
Yeah, it's hilarious. And Scrooge ends up saying, I don't want to kill him. I just don't want him part of this club. And then we go
Yeah,
back to the main story.
yeah,
There's more. It's hilarious. But Huey and Dewey, well, uh, Falcon Graves takes Mark Beaks to the top of the building. He's going to throw him off the top of the building. And Huey and Dewey decide that they're going to have to stop him because it'd be the right thing to do.
yeah.
And so Dewey comes out swinging with that briefcase. It's great. And there's, of course, some gags about the hats and stuff in there. And then Huey has a plan, and he's like, Dewey, whatever you do, don't let Graves see what's in the briefcase. And, you were talking earlier, that's when everyone's attention comes to the briefcase, and Graves gets it open, and $20 million explodes out and knocks him off of the building. We find out just how reckless Flintheart Glomgold is.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think, cause like, man, they could have just decided not to do the internship and open that briefcase and probably had a lot more fun.
Yeah, that would have made for a better day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so then to get back at Mark Beaks, Dewey grabs his phone and puts "My face looks like a butt," which is very juvenile. It
Yeah.
is hilarious. And Huey and Beaks is like, that's not a big deal. That's your retaliation. And Huey says something about the number of likes that it has and retweets.
Yeah. It had like 1,000 likes already, and then he, because it's so many likes, that he wouldn't be able to delete it anymore.
And you absolutely can. We get a little more insight into who he is. I mean, if it's based on Twitter, you can still delete it. It's
Yeah.
just, it's got 1,000 likes. He doesn't want to get rid of something that has 1,000 likes.
Yeah, exactly.
So he goes over the side, and of course, as he's falling, he types hashtag YOLO.
YOLO.
Oh man, it's great. So,
Yeah.
I think my favorite part of the episode, though, is the very end. Beaks lands on a trampoline. So did Graves when he fell off the building. They both land on a trampoline and get up. And he's pulling out his phone to tweet that he survived, I guess, or whatever you do when you waddle on whatever they do. And he drops his phone, and a rather large mustached duck rides up on a bicycle and runs over the phone, and then gives him an invitation to a billionaires convention on a yacht, which, if you've seen the episode, will sound very much like Flintheart Glomgold's plot.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Beaks is like, "Yes, I made it." And then we see this character who looked familiar take off his mustache. Oh wait, let me back up. I ruined that. He used a regular accent.
Yeah, he talked like a normal person. I wonder if that's the same actor.
but he had like an American accent.
Yeah.
And he rides off. He takes off the mustache, and he puts on his beard,
Yeah.
which is obviously fake.
Yeah, he just puts on a beard.
And then calls someone and tells them to get everything ready.
Yeah.
So my question here, I mean, I'm cracking up. My kids are laughing, and I'm thinking, Glomgold's a fake.
Yeah.
His Scottish accent's fake. His beard is fake. He does all this just to try and one up Scrooge.
That's right.
I love it. I love the humor in this episode. Just the whole episode was great. It was hilarious. That's my commentary.
Yeah, it's a lot of little things that they put in this is great. And one of the scenes we kind of glossed over was while Flintheart and Scrooge were talking over the plans, Scrooge discovers that Flintheart was planning on double crossing Scrooge after this whole plan as well. And so they were going to look down from above on the volcano and see him jump into the lava, and then Flintheart was going to like hit some kind of trap door, and then he was going to fall down into the lava as well. So he's got these elaborate schemes, and they don't all ever really work. And Scrooge kind of calls him out on it.
And he set a trap in the room, and Scrooge steps out of the way, and it misses him. And Scrooge is like, "Please tell me you've not been working on that for 6 months." And Glomgold's like, "I have no comment."
No comment. So it's been 6 months or more.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many slideshows he's had of that.
Well, another gag from that part of the episode was when Scrooge shows back up the next day, and he's like, there's a pizza box on his side of the room, and he's like, "Did you sleep here last night?" And Glomgold's like, "You don't sleep when you're plotting revenge against an arch enemy." Okay. Well, Josh, we've been talking a while this week, and I appreciate you being on this episode with me and the great conversation that we've had. DuckTales is awesome. Can't wait for the next episode. Trying to think right now what that episode is. It's the mummy of Torah or something like that. But great having you on. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll have you on in the future.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Hopefully I didn't talk everybody's ear off or start too many conversations where we kept going on and on. But I definitely enjoyed hanging out with you, and thank you guys for listening to the show. I enjoy listening to it every week, so hopefully we can get a good audience of the show, and I'll be back maybe someday.
Yeah, and we keep the conversation going all the time on Twitter. You can find me at Infinirama616, and my normal co-host, you can find him at the Pirate Steven. And Josh is usually involved in a lot of our conversations as well, and you can find him at, I'll let you give it.
It's CC Runner 524.
Yeah, and also check out the show. We are at DuckTalks. So join our conversation, get involved. We just want to talk about this stuff. So, and you can check us out at DuckTalks.com and at res.tv. Thank you for listening, and look forward to future conversations.
See ya.
See you later.